Welcome back, Chaos Crew. I am your host, Jamie, and today we are talking about perfectionism. So get cozy, get comfy, grab your Proffee, let's have some more caffeinated combos. So, I wanted to talk to you all about the idea of being a perfectionist. And I also want to chat with you a little bit more about how that's tied into my life in so many ways. But one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you about this is not just because of like me being a perfectionist, but pretty much everyone that I work with. And I've worked with thousands of women on their surgical journeys. And what I have found is not all, but the vast majority are women like myself who just struggle with all or nothing thinking, black and white, feeling like if it's not perfect, it's trash and therefore I failed. In whatever capacity, not even just like your weight loss. And I see it come up just so often. And one of the things I've realized lately, in the last couple of years actually, is I identified as a perfectionist my entire life, but what I've realized is I'm not actually a perfectionist. I'm just a really extreme overachiever. And in my opinion, I think those two things are different because nothing I do is perfect in any capacity. I just feel the need to always be doing more all the time. And a lot of the times when I add too much on my plate, it feels productive and it feels like I'm doing things right or perfectly, but it's actually not because I take on too much. So then it like waters down the quality of things I do sometimes in like my personal life. So I always thought I was type A. I always thought I was a perfectionist. I always thought I was that way. But in 2022, I got diagnosed with ADHD as an adult. And it like didn't make sense because in my head, someone with ADHD was someone who was type B, was more messy, was more go with the flow. I will say I'd like to be go with the flow, but I'm not go with the flow. I tend to be a little bit of a control freak. I like to be in control. And what I've realized in the last few years, getting support for my ADHD and my anxiety in the professional ways I've needed to, is I'm actually not so much type A or so much a perfectionist, but being a perfectionist was my coping mechanism like my whole life for trying to hold everything together. So I am going to talk about like my adult ADHD diagnosis in today's caffeinated conversations because it plays such a big role into this. And I know so many women I work with struggle with ADHD too. They're actually finding, to my understanding, I don't want anyone quoting me on this. I don't have like a research article to pull out right now, but from my understanding is there is a pretty big correlation with women with ADHD and adult ADHD diagnosis that also have struggled with obesity. And from my understanding, a big part of that has to do with the link of like impulse control and like compulsions around food, but also like genuinely needing like the dopamine hit and like seeking food. Or like at the end of the day, like going all day without eating because you forget because your brain is on that like one track. And then you're like, oh shit, I never ate. And then you're binging all night. I see that so often and I've lived that. But I, it's funny. I didn't even realize I had anxiety until around the time I got diagnosed with ADHD. And I know that's going to sound wild because I've literally been in therapy since before even considering weight loss surgery, like way back when I was struggling with like food and disordered eating when I was losing weight the first time. And it's funny because in my head, I was the one who always had everything together, even like in my family. Like my mom has struggled with pretty severe anxiety. My sister has anxiety, but the way it has manifested for them has always been like a little bit different, or for like other family members who have it. So in my head, I didn't struggle. But what I've realized is I've just struggled in different ways. And my therapist was like, you very much have very high anxiety. I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, Jim. So that was something to be like, oh yeah, like I do have anxiety. But what happened was in 2022, I finally got on anxiety medication for the first time in my life. After being in therapy for like 7 years, my therapist was like, listen, you're doing the work. You're in therapy. We're doing all these you know, talk like sessions, like whatever. She's like, I really think we're at a point where you could really use an anxiety medication. And I was very like, this is like me being super transparent and real with you all. This might not be like the healthy answer, but for me, all right, Chaos Crew, you already know how much I talk about being a new mom and juggling not only that aspect of my life, but my post op health and life after surgery. And I honestly can't even tell you how many times Hungry Root has saved me in this season of life. They are the most incredible grocery delivery service where I know that when I use their groceries, I'm getting really healthy, high protein, easy to use ingredients sent right to my door. And honestly, now that Oliver is eating real food now too, it's just they've grown so much with me and my family. I started using them when I was just 1 month postpartum and has absolutely been a game changer. Whether I am using the ingredients they send me from scratch to create one of their amazing meals with one of their recipes, or I'm just grabbing one of their ready-made options, I always have something for dinner ready to go for me and my family. And for right now, they are offering Proffee and Chaos listeners 40% off your first order when you use the code CHAOS at checkout. So don't forget, you can head to the link in the show notes. You can grab your first grocery order, which, like, hello, 40% off of groceries. Amazing. Make sure you go and do that. Use the link, use the code so they know that I sent you. I never wanted to go on an anxiety medication because I was so fearful of gaining weight on an anxiety medication because so many can contribute to weight gain. And if you remember back in 2022, that's when I was struggling with that like 28 pounds of regain. So I'm like, I don't want to make this worse. But once I went on Manjaro at the time and was back to like really like losing weight again, I felt more secure and comfortable trying an anxiety medication. And we tried one that was like weight neutral, so shouldn't like technically contribute to weight gain, which was a really positive experience for me. Because I had gotten to a point with my anxiety at this point in time where it was like affecting me physically. I would have trouble leaving the house because TMI, like nervous stomach, like I couldn't get out of the bathroom because I was anxious. Or the littlest thing would make me overthink. The people pleaser and me would be so worried someone was mad at me, and I've always been like that. I've been told my entire life, you're too sensitive, you're too sensitive, you're too sensitive. It's been flung in my face. I've got some toxic family members that I don't talk to anymore. And one of them, my grandmother, I've talked about this in my book too. She actually has severe dementia right now. So that's its own battle within my family, I suppose. But her and I didn't talk for many, many years. At this point, I talked to her, but she doesn't remember why we didn't talk or that we didn't talk. She would say mean things to me, like say mean things about my weight growing up, and then I would cry and she would throw it in my face and be like, "You're too sensitive. Why are you crying?" So like I always felt like crying or being sensitive or emotional was like a really bad thing. But with that, I didn't realize like I also had such severe anxiety being like a people pleaser and trying to be this perfectionist, especially because I felt so inadequate in certain areas, like with my weight and those struggles. I wanted everything else to at least be right or perfect. But in 2022, it got to the point where the anxiety was so bad. And what I realized was, well, I didn't realize this. What ended up happening was I got on the anxiety medication and I started to feel way better. It was like the racing thoughts I always had kind of calmed down. I could actually breathe. I wasn't stuck in the bathroom with a stomach ache because I was so nervous all the time over like nothing, too. So it really was helpful for me, and I continued to go to therapy, obviously. But what happened from there was more surprising. So while the anxiety had improved immensely, I remember talking to my therapist and being like, okay, like my racing thoughts and my brain that just literally never shuts up. Like there's always something going. I told her, I was like, it went from being like racing thoughts all the time to jumpy thoughts. And I didn't know how else to explain it. I'm like, I feel like I go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And I've always been like a multitasker, again, overachiever, perfectionist. But I remember sitting there in my therapy session one day and she asked me, this was after I'd been on medication for a while. And she's like, Jamie, she's like, I don't mean to interrupt you, but are you nervous right now? Are you anxious right now? And I was like, no, why? She's like, because you can't sit still. She's like, you're always like bouncing out of your seat. And I've always kind of thought that that had more to do with like you being anxious and nervous and shifting. And like, I am always moving. And if you guys notice, like, I'm always touching my hair. I'm always like readjusting. Like, I can't help it. And I was like, no, I'm not nervous at all. And she's like, "Okay, I think we need to do an ADHD evaluation." So I ended up having like 2 different ADHD evaluations. And the first one was from like, not for nothing, this old school old man who was definitely like stuck in I'm not saying he wasn't good at what he did, but basically during my questionnaire, you could tell just by the way he responded, like he definitely thought I had ADHD up until he asked me, "How did you do in school?" I did great in school. I wasn't like naturally like this like A plus student, but I worked my fucking ass off to get like A's and B's essentially. I like I would be up till like I was that student who would be like up till 1 in the morning, like trying to get her stuff done. But to be honest with you, I would procrastinate until it was due and then be up till 1 in the morning. So I would wait to write a 10-page paper for my AP English class until that night. I would actually wait to like read the book until that. So I'd wait to read the book for the AP English class until that night, read/skim the book, and then write like the 5 to 10 page paper and hand it in the next day. And I would get an A on it. Like I would. I am not even exaggerating a little bit when I say I have literally tried every single protein powder out there since I had my surgery 8 years ago. And for the first time, I am actually being super consistent with drinking my protein shake every single morning. And that's because First Form has been a game changer for me. It is the first protein powder that I actually enjoy drinking every day. I personally love their caramel latte level 1 flavor protein powder. It is incredible. It tastes so good. It is smooth, creamy, and only has the highest quality ingredients. It is not made with any fillers. It is just an epic product specifically for bariatric patients, and it's been a total game changer for me. And you guys know that this podcast is called Proffee and Chaos for a reason. I'm always grabbing my Proffee and running out the door, and First Form makes it possible for me to still live this chaotic life and hit my needs. So make sure you check out the links below, that you check out all of First Form's products. Again, level 1 is my favorite. Also in the show notes below, you can get my favorite Proffee recipe using First Form. But it was waiting till the last minute and I'd be up like all night doing it. And working in that way worked until it didn't. Basically, like for that first evaluation, you could tell his whole demeanor changed when I said I was like a straight A student and did great. He's like, "Well, that's not possible if you have ADHD," which is wrong. But he's like, "Kids who have ADHD, and you don't develop ADHD, it's something you've always had." He's like, "Kids who have ADHD usually don't do well in school, or like this would have popped up sooner in your life, essentially." And I was like, "Okay." I ended up going for another evaluation that came back, and even this first evaluation came back inconclusive. So long story short, he basically said we can't tell if it's like anxiety related or ADHD, but we can't definitively say it's like yes or no. So I let it go for a bit. And then a couple months later, I went for another evaluation once my anxiety was even more controlled on the medication. And that's when they were able to say, like, yeah, we're pretty sure you have ADHD. Basically, the way my psychologist that I actually love, who I work with now, who manages my ADHD meds, the way she explained it, she's like, okay, so basically, yes, you have anxiety, but so I was always in therapy for the anxiety, even though I didn't realize it was anxiety. I just thought it was food issues. It was like food issues around anxiety and weight, but anxiety at play. But I also was treated for OCD. So I always had OCD like tendencies, like having to check the stove so many times before going to bed, even though like I know I shut the stove off, but like what if I didn't and my whole house burns down and it's all my fault? Like that's kind of like something that's a huge part of what I've struggled with. Like, I can't leave the house because I curled my hair this morning and I know I unplugged the curling iron and I put it away, and I even took a picture of me putting it away to make sure it was put away in case I forgot if it was put away. But what if I didn't put it away and my house burns and my dog dies in my house because it burned down and it's all my fault, which always seemed like OCD, but apparently was more that type of overthinking, intrusive thoughts, struggles, also the anxiety. The way it was explained to me, again, I'm not a mental health professional, but like my psychologist said, like those things like present as anxiety and OCD, but what we really think it is coping mechanisms for the ADHD. So she said, she's like, the reason we're always overthinking so much, having those racing thoughts, like really overthinking it and like worrying about forgetting something and worrying about all these things, that was your coping mechanism for the ADHD to stay on task and not forget things. So always being anxious was because I was always worried I'd forget something or not manage something or whatever. So it presented as like, oh, I'm this overachiever perfectionist, always trying to stay on top of things all the time. But really, it was a way for me to try and manage things like forgetfulness or always kind of just being all over the place. And it's funny because if I talk to my mom, like there are a lot of things that I did that actually do line up really well with like ADHD tendencies. Like I was never super like neat and clean. Like my room was always it looked like it exploded. Just like and people can be messy and not have ADHD. That's not what I'm saying. But there was just like a lot of things. One of the other things that my mom has like said my whole life that there's actually a word for. I am like a hyperactive talker. So I talk really quickly, if you couldn't tell. But people have made comments about it my whole life and it's always made me insecure. So especially when I coach like my clients, I actually am really good at masking and slowing down for the most part, unless I get excited about something. I talk really fast. And my mom said that from the time I was like a toddler, I did that. And she was like, always like, Jamie, you have to slow down. So like I've always just been like that, like hyperactive talker, quick, like million different thoughts. Like I've always had like an idea or like, let's do this. I am notorious for starting projects and not finishing them. I'll give you an example. Like 2 years ago, I saw this TikTok and this girl was like painting candles. So she had like candlesticks and she would paint them like beautifully, like with flowers for like decorations. And I was like, found my calling. I'm going to paint candles. What did I do? Went to the local art store, bought like, I even talked to like the owner of the art store to find like special paint that you could like essentially light on fire and not like cause like a chemical reaction, and did all these things, got all the materials, ordered the candles off Amazon, hyper fixated on this for like a week till I had everything I needed. I sat down, finally said I was going to paint my candles. This was my calling. And guys, this was like 2 years ago. Like I had my business, I had all these other things to be doing. I think I painted like one petal and walked away. I'm not even shitting you. Like that's the kind of stuff like I've done like my whole life. I'm also super impulsive. I think, I've shared with you, I went to school for English and education and then like completely flipped over to dietetics. I made that switch within like less than a day's notice. I was like, nope, this is what I'm doing. I went to the registration office. I got all of my transcripts. In less than a week, I was accepted and ready to go to the dietetics program. Like, that's just how I am. I'm like, let's do it. Like messy action. But where this plays a role into all the perfectionism is what I learned is I'm actually not a perfectionist. I am an overachiever. And I think those two things are different because one of the things I've learned about myself with this ADHD diagnosis is my impulsivity, my ability to be messy and take messy action has actually been such a strength and almost superpower for me. I was talking to my PCP about this because she had given me the referral for the first psychologist, and she agreed I had a lot of the tendencies of someone with ADHD and a lot of the traits. But she said, she's like, honestly, like if it does come about that you have ADHD, don't let that like make you feel bad. She's like, people with ADHD truly have such a unique ability to get things done because you think outside of the box. One of the biggest things I talk to my clients about is the fact that surgery, as much as it is physical, is also super mental and emotional. We can have our stomachs removed, bypassed, whatever, but we cannot bypass or remove the parts of our head that need work. And this is why I am constantly referring people to find a bariatric therapist. This is an incredible, incredible platform created by my friend and colleague, Ashlyn Douglas Barnes. She is a licensed bariatric therapist. She had weight loss surgery herself, and it is so incredible what she has put together. It is a free directory. It costs you literally nothing. And you can find licensed bariatric specific therapists licensed in your state. So make sure you check it out. As a dietitian, I help you with the food, but we always need to be incorporating the interdisciplinary team so that you get the well-rounded support you need. Check it out below and let us know your thoughts. And it's true, like so many entrepreneurs have ADHD. Like I literally felt like I was dying inside at my old clinical dietitian job because sitting at a desk doing the same thing every day, like I literally can't. Like I literally can't. And that's what I love about my business is I can do this, that, or the other thing. It's like, again, add to the chaos, why don't we? But I'm like, let's like, if I want to create a free resource for you all, which I have my Stop Regaining free resource below, I decided I wanted to do that and did that in like couple hours, filmed it, threw it together. Like I have the ability to be like, no, that's what I want to do. I'm going to do it. And I do it until it's done because I hyperfixate on it. So it is like a beautiful superpower. But my point is none of that is done perfectly. Everything I have done to get me to this point in my life has been messy action. And when I say messy action, or I tell my clients, like just do it messy. Like when it came to building my business, instead of waiting till I had the perfect website or the perfect this, I only got my website up and going back in like 2023. I, until then, was just winging it, making like random like landing pages. Yeah, was it 2023? 2022 or 2023 was when I officially got my logos and my branding and my website. Like until then, I started my business in 2019. If I had waited till every single piece of that was perfect, it wouldn't have gotten done. And that's my whole point is a lot of people when they're stuck in that perfectionism cycle, all or nothing, they keep themselves stuck because they feel like if it's not perfect, it's not worth doing. I need to say this with love, emphasis on the love with the tough love here. That is so wrong because if you're going to wait till things are perfect or you can do something perfectly to get something done or accomplished, you're never going to get it done and you're never going to get it done effectively. So many of the women I work with come to me and they feel like if they're not meal prepping everything, if they don't have their macros perfectly counted out, if they aren't consistently losing 1 to 2 pounds a week, if they aren't doing what their favorite influencer is doing, that somehow it is wrong. Because if it's not perfect and I can't do it perfectly, therefore it's wrong and not worth doing. When really, I would rather see you winging it. I would rather see you half assing every step of this journey and doing something than nothing. So if that means grabbing your Proffee on the fly and grabbing whatever you can from your fridge so you have something with you while you're out doing errands, is that a perfectly balanced meal? No, but it's a hell of a lot better than stopping at Taco Bell on your way home. Like, we got to get out of this perfection mentality. And I really think being diagnosed with ADHD helped me with that because what I realized is I'm actually not a perfectionist. Listen, if you have followed me and looked at any of my content for any amount of time, you will find massive amounts of typos. I I literally get messages all the time from sweet, sweet angel humans who are like, "I don't know if you saw this, but in this resource I downloaded from you, like this is spelled wrong." And I'm like, "Yeah, it is." And like I'll go back and fix it. That is a huge ADHD thing too, because my brain goes like so quickly and I try and be better about making sure everything is edited properly and professionally, right? But at the end of the day, I'm not perfect. Things are imperfect. But if I let my fear of there being typos in all the shit that I write get in the way, I wouldn't have anything on my Instagram or my blog. It doesn't have to be perfect to be good. It doesn't have to be perfect to be enough. And that is something I want you to hear and take away and maybe reflect on in your life is how can you show up today and show up messy and do it anyways? And also as someone with ADHD and anxiety in a Capricorn, it's easy to feel like I need to be good at it first, or I need to be good at this, or I don't want to do it. But the only way you get good at something is by doing it. I didn't wake up one day and know how to navigate my bariatric journey with real life. And that's the thing. This is real fucking life. I didn't wake up one day and just be like, yeah, I know how to be the perfect bariatric patient. Like, no, I'm 7.5 years out and I'm still winging it most days, figuring it out. I am a busy stay at home mom to a 14-month-old who keeps me on my toes. I full time run a business. I am the CEO of my company. I have many people on my team who I pay to do the work. I am responsible for a lot of things. I have my clients, I have my membership, I have all this stuff to keep track of. And I like to think I do it very well, but it is not perfect. And in all that mix, I'm trying to take care of myself. I'm trying to do my own mindset work and journaling and meditations. I'm trying to get to the gym. I'm trying to make sure I have groceries for myself and my family. And more often than not, that looks like a pre-made Trader Joe's meal that I'm trying my best to heat up on time in the microwave. It does not have to be perfect. And I can't stress that enough. And I think it's really easy to look at people online and be like, oh, she lost weight. She has it all figured out. She must do things perfectly, and I'm not. And then you fall into the comparison trap. So I don't even know if this conversation is like fully making sense to you all, but my point is I always thought I was a perfectionist, but I'm really not. And I'm actually really glad I'm not because just because it's not perfect doesn't mean I'm not happy. I am the happiest I have ever been. And I can say that fully between, having my weight loss surgery, overcoming my terrible, terrible pregnancy, figuring out postpartum and new mom life this last year, all while continuing to grow and expand my business and try and make ends meet as a dietitian who has her own business, trying to do all the things. I'm genuinely so happy. And I think it's partially because I've let go of this idea of what it has to be and I've accepted what it is. So for anyone who needs to hear it, it's okay to not be perfect, and perfect doesn't exist. So if you are waiting for the perfect time, for the perfect season, I see this a lot with my clients. A lot of them, and I want to just validate that signing up for a one-on-one coaching program with me is an expense. It is an investment. But I'll see people say, oh, well, I don't want to do it at the wrong time because I want to be ready to fully dive in. And I'll tell people, I want to see you. I want to work with you at the messiest points in your life. I want to see you when you are the absolute busiest because guess what? If you can only map out a plan, if we can only build a plan for you that works when life is calm and beautiful and not chaotic, we're screwed as soon as things get busy. I would so much rather us deal with the messy and make sure that you're being flexible and consistent, not just perfect. Because if you can stick to your routine, but only when you have structure of being in your own home and own environment without holidays or birthdays or social events. If that's the only way you can maintain this, we've been doing a terrible job. We need to make sure that you can be flexible and not perfect. Because if you can only be perfect, we're in trouble. So I say that all to let you guys know I am not perfect. We are a hot mess express over here most of the time, but that's okay. Things have actually worked out for the better that way. So for whoever needs to hear it, one of the things I can say I am most proud of since starting my journey is creating the support for others that I never had. I remember thinking, oh my God, I am a dietitian and I am struggling on this journey with not just what to do, but how to do it to be successful and actually live my life, which is why I created my tribe membership back in 2020. It is the most incredible resource that I offer and the best starting point if you're looking for more support or some of my more nutrition services. It's an acronym and it stands for the Real Insights of Bariatric Eating. And it has so much support in there, not just from myself, but from other credentialed experts. We have therapists, we have a doctor of physical therapy, we have a nurse, we have so many people in there to support you along the way. So if you are interested in more nutrition support and more support in hitting your goals on your journey, that is a great place to start. You can check out the link below and use the code CHAOSCREW20 for 20% off your first month. And there's no minimum commitment. You can unsubscribe whenever you want. But I will say you probably won't want to because we do some epic things in there. If you're listening to this, I want you to think of one thing in your life you've really been wanting or desiring. Think of one thing that's been on your mind that you really want to achieve. Maybe it's a promotion at work. Maybe you want to start your own business. Maybe it has to do with your weight loss journey. Maybe you want to try a new hobby. Maybe you've been wanting to sign up for a class. Maybe you want to get your finances in order and pay off debt. Whatever it is, how can you show up in one capacity today, even if it's messy and not perfect? Does that look like getting an LLC to start your business? Does that look like starting to track your, income and what you're spending to pay off debt? Does that look like taking a walk today versus skipping another, gym session to get movement in? Like, what can you do today that maybe isn't perfect or Instagram worthy, but would actually get you one step closer to what you want in life? Because waiting for the perfect time is just going to keep you stuck. So I'd love for you to reflect on that. Whatever media channel you're watching this on, I would love for you to comment below and let me know what that thing is for you. And if you are enjoying this podcast, thank you. I'm really glad that you're here. Please make sure that you like and subscribe and do that on whatever channels you watch this on. If you're on YouTube, make sure you click that little notification button so you know when a new episode is posted. To make sure you don't miss anything, you definitely want to be on my email list. I have a link below to subscribe. Also, link below, we have info on all of our incredible sponsors. Thank you so much. I have info on my free Facebook group, all my free resources, all my paid programs. If you need more support and guidance on your journey, it is all there. So make sure you check that out and don't forget to leave a 5-star rating. And if you want even extra episodes, make sure you subscribe to my Patreon. You can become a VIP Chaos Crew member where you will get early drops of the episodes, extra bonus materials, and extra bonus sessions, recordings, and really exclusive episodes that you can only hear in the Patreon. So until next time, Chaos Crew, we'll chat soon.